Secretary of State Tony Blinken was just in Israel to meet with Israel's war cabinet. According to Blinken, quote, "I underscored the imperative for the United States that the massive loss of civilian life and displacement of the scale that we saw in northern Gaza not be repeated in the south," end quote. He added that, quote, "It is imperative that Israel act in accordance with international humanitarian law and the laws of war," end quote. So Blinken's saying that the scale of loss of civilian life in northern Gaza is unacceptable. And by warning Israel to follow the laws of war, he's basically accusing Israel of violating the law. But is this true? Which international law would Blinken say Israel has violated? Israel created a humanitarian corridor and continues to actively encourage Gazan civilians through leaflets, text messages, and phone calls to evacuate to safety. The law is clear that if one party to a conflict uses a civilian location for military purposes or actively prevents civilians from evacuating to safety, any civilian casualties are solely the responsibility of that party. In other words, when Hamas prevents Gazans from moving to the safe zone or builds a command center under a hospital, it's Hamas, and Hamas alone who's responsible for those civilian casualties. Secretary Blinken, if the civilian casualties are too high, maybe direct your outrage at Hamas. But is Blinken right that the civilian death toll in northern Gaza has been, quote, massive? Can't Israel do more? According to a UN Security Council report from May 2022, 90% of casualties of war are civilians, a 9-to-1 ratio. Hamas claims 15,000 civilian deaths in this war. Israel says that it's killed between 6,000 and 8,000 Hamas fighters, a ratio of 2-to-1. And remember, any number provided by Hamas is suspect, and that Hamas's terrorists wear civilian clothes so that their deaths are counted as civilian. In other words, there's no doubt the real number is far lower, and Hamas is responsible for all of them. Blinken's claims about Israel, along with similar statements by Joe Biden and Defense Secretary Austin, are insulting and false. Israel has gone beyond the letter of the law in its efforts to protect civilian casualties, as it does in every conflict. If Secretary Blinken wants Israel to comply with the laws of war and show concern for civilians, well, I guess they should just keep doing what they've been doing all along. Let's make no mistake about what's really going on. The Biden administration is protecting Hamas by tying Israel's hands, and I'm sure their friends in Qatar, Iran, and the Squad are quite pleased.